We just got the most recent consumer spending data from the Federal Reserve, and it's not looking good, but I see some news outlets trying to turn this into a positive. Because the thing is that credit card spending has been essentially flat for the last few months of 2025. And they're saying that the reason for it is that consumers are not confident in the economy, which could definitely be one of the reasons. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. So I want to dive into what's going on with consumer spending habits right now and see what we can make of it. As of August of 2025, total U.S. consumer debt climbed to a little over 5.06 trillion, which is a new all-time high, which is all different types of debt that people hold, not just credit card debt. We're talking mortgage debt, personal loans, auto loans, student loans, credit card debt, buy now, pay later. About 1.31 trillion of that 5 trillion is credit card debt, and 3.76 trillion of it is non-revolving credit, things like the auto loans, student loans, and personal loans. And the revolving credit portion of it actually fell 5.45% in the most recent month, which is a rare dip that might reflect households could be hitting their limits or paying down balances after heavy summer spending. My guess is it's on the first one. People are hitting their limits. They actually cannot spend more on the credit cards because there's probably nothing left to spend in many cases. Like, you can only go so far before you max out a credit card. And say you already have, 5 credit cards and 3 of them are close to being maxed out, you're probably going to be very, very hesitant to put any balance on the other 2 because you might be saving that for an emergency. This is my last resort credit card that I have to use, like break glass in case of an emergency type of deal. Make no mistake, even with this decline in credit card spending, credit card debt still remains at near record level highs right now, which suggests that consumers have been leaning heavily on credit cards to cover their everyday expenses. And we know this is happening from previous reports, as well as the rampant use of buy now, pay later to buy things even like groceries now. And the other thing you have to look at with this report is that non-revolving credit still continues to grow. Auto and student loans rose 2% in August, which is continuing their climb upwards, and borrowers are still financing major purchases despite the higher interest rates, showing that credit demand outside of credit cards still remains strong, which in my opinion means I need to buy the new car because my old one stopped working. So I need to buy that. It's not optional. So here I am. Regardless of what the interest rates are, this is something I have to do so I can pick up my kids from school and go to work. It's just so funny that the way that some of these economists paint the economy with some of this economic data, like the interpretations are so different, and obviously they want you to believe things are going well. Just like with the retail spending going up, right? It's like, well, the retail spending is going up because it has to. People have to spend more today than they did a year ago. So naturally, the retail spending is in line with inflation. People are not voluntarily spending more. They're spending more because of inflation. And the amount of money that people are spending is a little bit more than what the inflation numbers are showing us officially. So to me, that's basic common sense, but to economists, it means that the economy is booming. But another thing that this slowdown in borrowing could be is it also could be tighter lending standards, or it could be growing concerns about job security and the higher interest rates that people have to pay on this debt. I think it's a combination of all of it. I think people are worried about their jobs. We know that they are, because most people in a recent survey said that they are worried about losing their job and finding work if they are put in that position. And it's not going to be as easy to borrow when you already have a high debt to income ratio. And the higher interest rates should be a deterrent for people to borrow money that they don't really need. So, of course, you're going to see people continue to borrow money to buy cars because that's something that people need. It's not optional, right? If you live in an area that's car dependent, like here, you can see all the cars parked on the street and in driveways. You need to have one. If you don't have one, it's going to make your life miserable trying to get to and from work, relying on public transportation. I like to look at the big picture with everything, which is that people are more stretched out with debt than they ever have been before, with consumer debt levels at all-time highs. And credit card interest rates are still sitting at around 22% for most cards, and people are paying record amounts of interest on these cards, so it's kind of a deterrent to continue spending on them unless it's absolutely necessary. But here's the thing. A sustained slowdown in credit card growth could also point to weaker spending ahead, which matters for the broader U.S. economy, considering that 70% of U.S. GDP is derived solely from spending. So if people are seriously tapped out and the spending slows down significantly, well, no wonder we're going to see a dip in GDP because it all relies on that. We also know that consumer sentiment has been way down recently, basically at the levels that we saw during the last big recession in 2008. So for people, it's like, give me a reason I should spend more right now. You know, I can't. I'm barely hanging on as it is with the expenses I have. And of course, I'm spending 4% more at the store this year because I have to. That's not because I want to. We've all gotten those spam phone calls and text messages from companies that we've never heard of, and we have no idea how they got our information. And that's why today's video is sponsored by Delete Me. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service that will remove your personal information that's being sold online. And Delete Me's privacy experts remove you from hundreds of data brokers all year long. They can collect things like your name, your age, your address, your photos, your email address, where you work. And one of my own personal favorite features of Delete Me is the custom removal request. Sometimes I find out that a website has my information that I never gave it to, and I'll submit it to Delete Me, and a lot of times they can get that removed on my behalf. All I have to do is fill out a simple form. No other work on my part needed. So make sure to get 20% off your Delete Me subscription today by joining using the link down below at joindeleteme.com/boardandarrow or use the QR code on the screen. But I'll tell you one thing that all of us are going to be spending more money on real soon if you're not already, and that is your electricity bill. A lot of people over the past month saw a big increase in their electric bill, and residential electric rates have risen pretty fast across the US, more than 30% for the average person since 2020, which is almost double the official rate of inflation. We got some Halloween decorations over here. It's kind of cool. And one of my viewers wanted me to cover this also because data centers is one of the reasons that this is happening lately, because we're seeing a lot of AI data centers popping up all over the country that suck up a tremendous amount of power, and there's a likelihood that you are subsidizing it, which is kind of ridiculous, especially since these companies make billions of dollars in profit. They should be the ones subsidizing your electric bill, but in often cases it's the other way around. But high energy bills can disrupt the entire economy because it ripples throughout everything. When electric bills are high, it disrupts manufacturing, construction, transportation. It affects everything. And by the way, today I'm walking in Mill Valley in a neighborhood right off of Blythedale Avenue. So what's causing this increase in electric bills? Well, it's a combination of everything. There's a higher electric demand. We got more people. Had a lot of illegal immigration over the past few years. You have volatile fuel prices and inflation, of course, contributing to it. There's tariffs on imported energy and materials right now. We also have very slow transmission line construction, which delays adding new power and generation capacity. And a lot of experts say that these conditions are not going to improve anytime soon, and these high electric bills are likely here to stay. Conveniently, they left out the AI data centers as one of the reasons that power bills are going up, but it is only in localized areas. This is not happening all over the place. If you live near one of these AI data centers, you've likely heard about it, and some people live so close to them that they literally hear it every day, and it's a major disruption to their life. These places are extremely loud and are not friendly to their neighbors. But these power bills have gone up so much recently that we're already seeing an increase of power shutoffs for non-payment, and roughly 80 million Americans are forced to choose between utilities and essentials like housing or healthcare. I mean, imagine that being your situation where you have to choose between paying the rent or paying the electric bill, or paying your doctor bills or paying the electric bill. This is what I'm talking about. Like, people are already seeing a major downgrade in standard of living, and that's going to continue to get worse as inflation continues to rage through this economy and people are not making the extra money to keep up with that extra cost. The Electric Power Research Institute uses the term energy wallet to describe combined household spending on electricity, natural gas, and gasoline. And in 2024, they found out that the average U.S. household spent about $5,500 on energy. It was $2,930 on gasoline and $1,850 on electricity. And adjusted for inflation, overall energy spending has stayed stable since 2020. But they say electricity costs are rising faster than inflation. That's starting to outpace it, which to me, I also interpret as the electricity bills rising is more in line with how much inflation we're really seeing, not with the phony, bogus government numbers that we've been given on inflation. They're saying that technology and big investments in renewable energy could make electricity cheaper by 2050, but that might as well be light years away. You know, for people who are struggling right now to pay the bills, saying that it's going to be cheaper in 25 years from now is kind of a joke. Like, who cares, you know? And I don't know what on earth they're thinking here, but they basically go on to say in this story that if we continue to see the growth in electric vehicles and that becomes the future, as well as electric appliances, then this is going to change consumption patterns. This is somehow going to make electricity cheaper for everybody in the future. Like, explain to me again how everybody using more electricity, not less, is somehow going to make it cheaper. That sounds ridiculous to me. I've never heard of anything like that. And of course, there's no explanation here either on how that's possible. Wow, check out the garden these people have. They got all kinds of things growing in here. Flowers, food, you name it. That's pretty cool. Entire yard dedicated to gardening. So first of all, there should be laws in place that require these large data centers that are also contributing to this to either generate their own electricity or to subsidize the local area's electric bills, have them pay a larger percentage of the power usage than the average household needs to nearby. A lot of the experts are saying that we need to push for more solar and more electric storage in order to make electric prices stable in the coming decades. And as for consumers, what can you do? Well, obviously, you can shut the lights off and live in the dark if you want to. You can try to live off grid if that's your thing. You can also get a home energy audit. You can use energy efficient lights and appliances and basically anything that's energy efficient. And you can also install double pane windows and seal the air leaks in your house to make sure that you are maximizing the efficiency of your home. But you look at something like this, you see how much electric bills are going up for people along with every other type of bill. And then it's like a shocker that spending is starting to slow down. People aren't putting as much on the credit card anymore. And that's probably because people have already put as much on the credit card as they can stomach. That's my guess at what's going on. I mean, I don't know this for sure. This is my guess at what's happening out there. So if you're somebody out there who was spending a lot of money on the credit card and has been pulling back, make sure to put it in the comments below and let us all know why and what your reasonings for it are and what you're experiencing. Now, for the rest of this video, we have to talk about the price of gold, because gold just hit a brand new all-time high of $4,000 an ounce for the first time in history. And this is a very big deal. And before we go any further, I just want people to know that, first of all, if you want to buy gold, I have a link down in the description below, because people always ask me, I always get messages asking where I buy my gold from, and I buy it from APMEX, and I have a link for it down in the description below, and if you use my link, I'll get a small commission for that, which I appreciate. They're not going to charge you extra or anything for using my link. It's just where I buy gold. And also, I want to just mention a couple things I got going on here, which is, number one, if you haven't signed up for my newsletter yet, make sure you do that. The link for all this stuff I'm talking about is always in the description below the video. And I recently started a second YouTube channel, which is just a clips channel. You might have seen big podcasting channels do clips channels where they basically just put out small clips of whatever they're doing. Well, that's what the clips channel is, because some people don't have time to watch a 20-minute video every day. So I'm putting out clips on there that are anywhere between 4 and 8 minutes long. And that's good for people who want to watch shorter videos and just want to see bite-sized content. But just rest assured that nothing's going to be changing on this channel. I'm still going to be putting out the longer form videos here. And depending on how things go with the clips channel, I might not even commit to it for long term, depending on what the appetite for that type of content is. But for now, I'm posting on there. I have the link for that down below. So go and check it out if you want to see those shorter videos. But back to the price of gold, okay? Gold went to $4,000 for the first time ever. And gold is basically beating every other asset class this year when it comes to appreciation and growth rates. Gold is beating the S&P 500. Gold is beating real estate. Gold is even beating Bitcoin when we're talking about return percentages. And ever since the Fed started cutting interest rates back in September of this year, we have seen gold continue to go up. We're basically in a stagflation economy right now where growth is stalling or even going to start falling negative pretty soon. At the same time, inflation is still going up. And really the only things that can protect you from this type of situation, historically speaking, has been gold and silver. A lot of people believe Bitcoin will as well. And so far it is holding up. It's not returning as good as gold, but it's definitely getting your money outside of US dollars, which is kind of the aim for everybody investing in gold, silver, or Bitcoin. And besides inflation and worries about where the US dollar is going to be headed in the next decade, central banks across the globe have been really increasing their buying of gold ever since about 2011, really. When you look back on this chart, going back to the year 2000, central banks across the world were dumping gold and they were getting rid of it. But that all reversed in 2010, right after the GFC was kind of finished and the dust had just settled. Well, you can see it started going back up again. And over the past 3 years, it has gone up tremendously, the highest amounts in decades. Also, retail investment into gold has been surging, especially in the Western Hemisphere. September actually marked the biggest monthly inflow on record to the gold ETFs linked to physical gold. Now, in my opinion, that's not buying gold. You're just buying an ETF that says you have a claim to gold. That's not buying gold. I like buying physical metals, which is why I gave you guys the link in the description to go buy the actual real stuff. But just in the month of September, we saw $33 billion pour into gold ETFs, guys. Like, this is just unprecedented what's going on right now. Even Morgan Stanley came out recently and said that they are introducing gold as 20% of their portfolio now, which is something that they've never done before, ever. So why all of a sudden is everybody so bullish on gold? I think it's that all of these people and companies who are investing in gold, as well as entire countries, are finally reawakening to their roots and understanding that gold is and always has been the only form of real money that has ever existed. And since everything is getting completely carried away with inflation and how people's finances are being handled, they're realizing that this is the only real sustainable way moving forward is to go back to gold. I always keep hoping and praying that one day the dollar will go back on the gold standard and that we will be stuck using that, which means we won't be able to just print our way out of every single monetary mess that we find ourselves in. And the price of gold has gotten so high that it's even been a huge boon for gold mining companies that have seen a recent surge in their valuations due to the demand for gold these days. Some of the experts are even saying that gold could go to $5,000 by the end of the year, guys. Like, I don't know. I don't really take too much stock in these predictions. All I know is you should definitely have some. And, is this the best time in the world to buy gold? Definitely not. It's at record high prices. The best time to buy it was always going to be yesterday or 10 years ago, just like any other asset. But unlike any other asset, we can't artificially produce it. The Federal Reserve can't print it. And there's a very limited supply of it to go around. And whatever we have is whatever we have. That's it. Citadel's Ken Griffin, he says that the rush into gold is actually worrying him about where the future of the economy is going right now, because he thinks it's a warning of the confidence in the US dollars being a global safe haven, meaning that a lot of people no longer believe that dollars are going to be the reserve currency of the world because they've lost too much of its value. And I think that's exactly what's going on here, because investors are now viewing gold as the stable store of value that it has always been. People have forgotten about this over the years because the stock market looks so nice and shiny. Everything continues to go up. And then the invention of crypto, and look at where Bitcoin is now compared to where it was when it first came out. Those are definitely impressive figures, but when you price all this stuff in gold, it's really not that impressive, guys. And everything that's priced in dollars today is artificially high. Ken Griffin says that the surge in gold, as well as other dollar substitutes, is evidence of asset inflation away from the dollar. But you see, everybody's just changing their mind on all this now that gold is really starting to come up to its true value in dollars, because even he says, I now view gold as a safe harbor asset in a way that the dollar used to be viewed. That's what's really concerning to me. Well, he only views it that way now because gold has hit all-time high prices. If gold was still sitting at $2,200 an ounce, where it was just a little over a year ago, well, he probably wouldn't be saying that. Personally, I've known this stuff to be true at least since about 2017. I think I bought my first ounce of gold at the end of 2017 or in 2018, I can't remember. That's when I first really learned the power of owning gold and silver and how it's the only true money that's ever existed. And guess what, guys? I bought my first ounce of gold for about $1,200, which is a lot more compared to maybe some old timers who watch my channel. Maybe only bought an ounce for $50, or they bought it for $100 or whatever. But still, look at $1,200 compared to where it's at now. But the reality is the US is losing its reputation as its safe harbor to invest in. You know, we've kind of abused our power as the world's reserve currency, inflated away too much of the value of our currency to the point where a lot of other countries don't trust us anymore. And why should they? Even a lot of Americans don't trust this country anymore. I'm one of them. Something I thought was kind of funny about this story is that they say the economy is on a sugar high, with fiscal and monetary policy still acting as if the US were in a recession. And that's kind of funny, because still acting like we're in a recession, acting like we're not actually in one, you know? Meaning that, well, the Fed is lowering interest rates now, probably even going to go back to quantitative easing, and that's something that they typically do when we're in a recession. And they're likely doing that because they know that we're in a recession. They know that that's where things are at right now. And they know that we're going to have to experience much higher inflation by choosing to lower interest rates. And that's why people are pouring into gold and Bitcoin. And just to put into perspective, guys, gold prices have climbed 49% year to date. That's just from January 1st till now, compared to the S&P 500's measly 14% gain year to date. That is nothing, guys. And like I said, you price it in gold, it's negative. So you can do whatever you want. I personally don't like to be left in the dust. In fact, investing in gold and silver has probably been my best investment ever in terms of paying off. I did well on Bitcoin too, because I bought it early enough. But I definitely wouldn't be buying any at today's valuation. A lot of people might say that about gold as well. But the fact of the matter is, central banks across the world are not loading up on Bitcoin. They're loading up on gold. And what are you going to trust? You're going to trust something that's been money for over 5,000 years? Or are you going to trust something that was invented 20 years ago? You know? Once again, I'm not saying don't have it. I'm just saying have a little bit of everything. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here. And I'll see you in the next one.